The action of this story begins at the airport. "Look, it's Jacob! Damn, he's so hot!" screamed the crowds of female fans as soon as they saw the celebrity. Many girls felt that not meeting Jacob was the mistake of a lifetime. "Quiet! Calm down a bit, everyone, or you'll disturb the other passengers." The guy tried to calm them down, after which the celebrity got into the car. Jacob seriously wondered that lately, other than variety shows, he hadn't been doing any other kind of acting work. "Jacob, you should realize that you've been divorced as a rookie. Currently, most of your offers are for variety shows. However, the effects of variety shows are not that great. You don't have to stay in this city for a long time. You can show your face once a week and increase your exposure while stabilizing the fans," said his assistant. But the guy kept stating that he still wanted to be an actor. Then his manager said that there is a new romantic high school drama that is casting. The girl promised that she would help get the guy the lead role. At that time, a nice-looking lady was on the phone. "Julia, my friend's family is having a banquet full of promising young men. After all these years, you should let me go," said the girl, who was begging the other to show up at the event. "Okay, I will attend the banquet tomorrow. I let it go a long time ago, but I'm still reluctant," Julia admitted. When Julia met Jacob the next day, she immediately noticed his attractiveness. In addition to that, the guy also recognized the young actress. "Newcomers? Huh, they really look like little white rabbits," thought the girl while looking at the young man. Just then, Julia heard the work phone ringing. "Take an errand from your mother. You are to report tonight with your airplane ticket, and I will return it to you. I'll come and get you," the girl's mother promised. "And this girl is funny. Does she really communicate with exclamation points alone?" Julia wondered jokingly. Still, she'd gotten a message from her mother that the woman would be arriving with an equally cute baby today. Therefore, Julia could come early today. Half an hour later, in the tea room, Jacob's manager was making a work-related call. "There's a banquet tonight, so tell Jacob to go to the hotel's first box. Since you want that dramatic part, I'll help you with that," said the manager's brother. Then the girl decided to give the guy a message from her brother. "There's a dinner tonight, and if Jacob goes, he can join the Lime Band." However, the guy did not want to accept the offer. "I said I won't participate in these dirty dinners. Make up an excuse not to go," pointed out Jacob. "You have to go to this! If it was someone else, I could help you, but this is a big boss event. She even mentioned your name to ask you to go, just—" But before the girl could even finish speaking, immediately the guy interrupted her after hearing the big boss's name. "Yes, that's the big boss, Felix. If you agree, arrange for someone to pick you up," emphasized the manager. Of course, after what was said, Jacob was assured that he had to go to the event. However, the guy still wondered what exactly Felix wanted from the young star by suddenly inviting him to this dinner party. Thinking about it, the guy was already standing at the door to Julia's office. Going in, he was mesmerized by her attractiveness, standing a pillar at the entrance. The girl, on the other hand, wasting no time, walked up to the guy and said, "Jacob, you look a lot like my ideal type." Jacob was hovering in the clouds. "Her hair still smells just like it used to," he thought awkwardly as the girl turned her back to him, inviting him to the table. "I'm not picky, so it's okay," Jacob said, shyly shuffling from foot to foot. "Don't be nervous. What I just said was serious, but just think about the food right now," Julia said as she poured the tea. During this awkward silence, while going through his cup of tea, Jacob thought about how beautiful Julia was. The boy suddenly remembered the day Julia had arrived at the school for the school's founding anniversary to give a lecture. When the girl got up on the stage and greeted the whole school, Jacob's heart beat faster. As she began her speech, she casually looked at the boy and smiled, making his heart beat even faster. After congratulating all the students for graduating from high school, the girl ended her speech with an invitation to Oak Music Entertainment. "I know you want to be an actor. If you want to be my boyfriend, I will help you and give you all the resources you need," Julia said to break the awkward pause. Even though the guy was outwardly embarrassed, But inside, he was just jumping with happiness. Jacob couldn't believe that she wanted him to be her boyfriend. But at the same time, he wondered, does she do this kind of thing often? You're an adult and can make your own choices. If you want to say no, just tell me straight and I won't pester you anymore, Julia said, to which Jacob only shook his head in silent denial. Leaning closer to the boy and taking him by the chin, Julia said, "You don't have to worry about me mistreating you." At that moment, a thought flashed through Jacob's mind. I'm really grateful that I can be closer to you to realize that. If you don't mind, I'll have my assistant make the contract and give it to you, Julia said. There is also a banquet tonight that Jacob is required to accompany her to, so Julia will send someone to get the guy. After Jacob had recovered a little from his shock, he asked her a question. According to your status, you don't need to help me in this way. Why don't we just date legally? Something I want is not love. A situation where we both win is better for us, isn't it? It was a rhetorical question that was accompanied by Julia's cold reasoning. Jacob was surprised by this answer. I'm interested in you, Julia said, interrupting the guy and handed Jacob her card. Left alone with himself and the card Julia had left him, he thought to himself, I never thought that the idol I was chasing so earnestly would meet me like this. Thinking back on everything from his high school years, the guy concluded, even if the meeting wasn't romantic, it was much better than just a brief encounter. So, without thinking long, the guy dialed the number on the business card and told Julia that he agreed to be her lover. But he had one condition. Jacob waited shyly for her while she was getting ready, and a thought popped into his head. I agreed to her proposal. I could never be around her the way I am now. I will introduce you to everyone tonight. From now on, your name will be linked to mine. You won't have to worry about publicity problems. I'll do business with you, Julia told the guy as they walked to the common room. The guy was quite confident in his decision. Such confidence from Jacob even came as a surprise to Julia herself. The fact that I can hold your hand right now is a huge gift from God. I'm ready to go to the end of the world with you, Jacob thought to himself as he saw the girl walking up the stairs. When the door opened, everyone inside took notice of the guy who had arrived with Julia. The whole purpose of today's meeting was just to set Julia up with someone. Jacob had a thought when he heard this. So she suggested they become lovers to avoid the matchmaking? Julia saw her mother in the crowd and told Jacob not to be nervous and just follow her to keep up. Her mother bestowed a genuine smile on the couple and was happy to see the boy by her daughter's side. Although the woman was a bit stunned after the news that this was her daughter's new companion and that her whole banquet was for nothing, but she didn't give any sign. And everyone started discussing the couple from now on, saying, relationships are fine. It's just a pity that she and I don't have more chances. You're a beautiful kid, but you look much younger than my Julia. Does she like pretty boys? Pulling Jacob by the sleeve to examine him, the mother coaxed. Okay, I know that as soon as you see a cute boy, you want to pinch his cheeks, Julia said, pushing her mother away from the boy. Standing between Jacob and the woman, she asked the latter to keep her emotions in check. You should have told me earlier that you had a boyfriend. I've collected a bunch of perfect men just for fun. Many of them work in the same industry as you, so I'll introduce you to them, the woman said with a hint of manipulation. Jacob was a little startled by his mother's insistence, but Julia handed him the cake and told him to rest and wait for her to approach him. I left him here all alone at such an important celebration. He's probably not used to it. Doesn't he think I'm not qualified enough to be his financial patroness? Julia thought when she didn't see the guy where she had left him. She found the guy sitting in the corner of the room. She realized that he must have had too much to drink, so she suggested that he go outside and get some fresh air. Once outside, Julia sat down on a bench so Jacob could lie on her lap. I'm thirsty. I need water, Jacob said through his drunken sleep. While Julia was trying to make out his words, Jacob wasted no opportunity to pull her sharply to his lips. The girl was a little shocked by the guy's behavior, but she immediately gave in to his actions and responded to the kiss. The next day, the guy woke up and saw Julia quietly drinking hot tea in a chair near the bed. The guy started to worry if he had done something stupid last night, as he couldn't remember anything because of alcohol, but Julia hurried to reassure him. "Don't worry, nothing happened. I wouldn't take advantage of a drunken man no matter how cute he was." Though in her head, the girl was thinking about how charming the guy was after all, and how she had almost succumbed to his charms. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Opening the door, Julia saw her friend on the doorstep. "Didn't you call and say that you would meet me at the company? Why are you here?" Julia asked, surprised. "Your mom said you brought a very cute boy to the banquet yesterday. Tell me about it. What celebrity did you catch?" Not hiding her joy for her friend, Sophie shook Julia. Suddenly, all of Sophie's attention turned to someone standing behind Julia. It was Jacob, who'd come out in a robe, saying he'd finished showering but hadn't found any spare clothes. While waiting for the assistant, the girls took a seat on the couch, and Sophia began to question Julia about the new guy. "He really fits your type. Anyway, what do you want to talk to me about in company?" Translating the subject, Sophie asked. At that moment, Jacob came into the room and, interrupting Sophie, said, "I'm done changing. Are you done talking girls yet?" This is a very rare occurrence. "I didn't know a cold beauty like Julie could exude such a girly vibe," Sophie said, pointing her phone camera at the couple. Julie set about introducing her friend to Jacob. "Sophie is the head of the Oak Music Entertainment. She'll be your new manager." Slightly distracted from her shoot, Sophia realized what Julia had just said and was in a kind of rage, yelling at her friend. "Julia, do you know how busy I am? How can I manage your baby on top of everything else?" Sophie said, trying to process all the information in her head. Pulling the boyfriend by his arm to her, Julia said, "I promised I would give him the best resources. He deserves a stellar agency." For her services, Sophie demanded 5 times her usual rate, which Julia readily agreed to, saying hand in hand and adding, "I noticed that he has a new limited edition bag, so I'll have my assistant send it to you this afternoon." Jacob's attitude was friendly. "Sophie, I'm going to have to bother you to take care of me." To which Sophie said in a slightly commanding tone, "My schedule is very tight, so preparations will be a little slow. Don't whine about it when it happens in the future, okay?" Sophie and Jacob were so engrossed in getting to know each other and looking for the other on social media that they didn't hear Julie's words. Jacob immediately texted Sophie to send him a picture she had taken earlier. The guy immediately broke out in a soft smile when he saw the new notification on his phone because it was their first photo together with Julia. At that moment, Julia handed the guy a certain notebook saying, "This? A script for a high school drama. Didn't your agent want to get this part for you earlier? Is this lime? I've heard the manager mention it before." Reading the script, Jacob said, "The main character's personality is very similar to yours in this drama," Julia said. She also mentioned that she sent the questionnaire to the casting director yesterday, so now Jacob is expected to audition. Julia wanted to mention this earlier, but since Jacob got drunk at the banquet, she didn't have time. "What time is it now? I'll leave right now," Jacob said firmly. "You can take a closer look at the script on your way out," Julia said as she grabbed her keys off the nightstand and promised to drive the guy. "It doesn't look like I can park near the audition site, so we're a little far away from it," Julia said as she pulled up to the site, looking at the guy. "Got it. I'll leave first because the manager will meet me at a coffee shop nearby," Jacob answered her without looking away from the script. Looking at the time, Julia informed Jacob that he only had half an hour before the audition started, so she told him to hurry up. Looking at the guy, Julia had only one thing on her mind. His looks are just right for a male role in a high school drama. While the guy still had 10 minutes left, he asked the girl to help him with some lines. "Here, where the main characters meet after they grow up, and the leading man wants to confess to the leading woman," Jacob said, leaning closer to the girl, showing her a moment in the script. Finding the heroine's words, Julia began to read out, "I've liked you since high school," he said. Walking up to the cafe, Jacob immediately saw his manager, who pounced on him with a bunch of questions. "You have too many questions. Relax," Jacob answered her in a calm tone. "Then just answer one question. Did the banquet go okay?" Worried about the guy, the girl asked. "You are secretly in love with a girl in this country. She confessed to you, but you haven't responded yet because you're going abroad. So be indifferent. Deep down, you really feel broken, the casting director briefly told the plot of the drama. At this moment, the manager and Sophie walked onto the set. Sophie took out her camera again and secretly took a picture of Jacob to send the picture to Julia. While looking at the picture, an image of a certain guy popped into Julia's mind, and she thought, "Cold people always make people want to protect them. I was right. Jacob looks amazing dressed like a schoolboy. He's so cute and fluffy." Julia squealed with joy and replied to her friend. Jacob was standing under a tree listening to music, and suddenly a girl came up to him saying she had some important news to tell him. "I go to the same university as you. I want to be with you," Lily said awkwardly. After confessing her love to the guy, all she got was a cold reply. "I made you misunderstand that I want you to keep following me everywhere." With those words, the guy walked past the girl away. Standing behind her back, he uttered, "I don't like you. I'm sorry." With those words, the take was complete. "Your boss still has a good eye for talent," emphasized the crew guy that was standing next to Sophie watching the whole thing. Jacob was very tired, so Sophie told him to go home and rest, saying that he would get a call back tomorrow. Before he left, Sophie told him that someone would be picking him up. Before he could listen to her and change, Jacob ran out of the studio. "I left too quickly and forgot to ask Sophie where she was," Jacob realized, standing outside. He picked up his cell phone and dialed Julia, asking where she was. She answered, "I'm at the coffee shop around the corner." After they officially announced the launch of Lime Rooters, they can spread the word. It's sure to attract a lot of female fans, Julia read as she waited for a guy at a table. "I passed by the flower store and bought you some sunflowers." The guy took off his mask and gave the girl a bright smile and handed over a bouquet of flowers. The girl was a little surprised. "Sunflowers? Why these particular ones?" "Sunflowers look at the sun and always follow its footsteps," Jacob answered her, looking directly into Julia's eyes. Such a gesture made the girl blush. "It's really hot. I want to get some ice cream. I'll go get some." Abruptly jumping up, Julia said and walked into the cafe. Jacob also told Julia his immediate plans. "Tomorrow I'm joining the cast, so I'll go back home and pack some things." Watching the girl eat ice cream, Jacob wanted some too. "Sorry, I forgot to buy you some," Julia apologized awkwardly. But that didn't stop the guy. He covered the girl's face with the bouquet and leaned closer to her. Walking down the street, Jacob asked if he could call Julia a nickname, to which the girl replied, "I only let people close to me call me that." After coming home, Julia's phone received a new message from Jacob. The guy sent her an interesting emoji, and Julia wondered if she should download some emoji to reply to him. Afterward, Julia called Sophie. "Have you finished planning Jacob's schedule yet?" And also clarified if her friend knew about what gifts she should leave behind. "It's all already arranged. Hold on a second, I'll send you some links," Sophie replied enthusiastically. 15 minutes later, Julia's phone received a new message from her friend, which made her surprised. The next day, Jacob was already on the set from the very morning, asking his manager how long his shoot would last. 2 months. Also, Sophie wanted you to memorize this form," the manager said as she handed him a stack of papers. These questions seemed rather strange to Jacob, to which the manager replied, "Sophie said to do all this so we can learn more about you. Only then you can earn a stable fan base." After getting off the bus, Jacob went for a walk. But suddenly, someone called out to him. Turning around, he saw the girl that plays him in the same drama. She was too pushy, offering him coffee, to which the guy politely replied that he didn't drink in the morning. At this point, the manager appeared just in time, saying that Jacob often has stomach aches, so he only drinks black, holding a thermos for the guy. "I really can't believe that even after 2 months, I won't have a chance to get close to you. I'll definitely seduce you this time," thought the girl, a little irritated. Jacob had only promotional photos planned in his schedule today. The manager also clarified that the director had taken care of the dinner tonight, where the guy would definitely have to attend. Jacob picked up his phone and saw a new message from Julia, and immediately smiled as it was an invitation to his hotel room. "I may be there a little later if the director asks why I say I'm sick," Jacob informed the manager, which sent her into a furious shock. "Please, Just for a little while at least. I have a more important meeting right now. Begging the manager, Jacob said, leaving the set. You came so fast. Did you finish all your filming for today? Julia asked, opening the door to the room. Walking into the room, Jacob saw all his stuff and asked Julia about it. I let Sophie turn your room into a suite. It is now next door and connected to mine, Julia told him as she led him around the room. Holding out a gold card to the guy, the girl informed him that they would be staying next door for the next 2 months. But if you get too busy shooting, we can't see each other often, Julia said, kissing the guy on the forehead. Giving the guy a smile, the girl informed the guy that she had booked a restaurant upstairs of the building for the evening. The guy was a little miffed. The director organized the banquet. I'm sorry, but we won't be able to have dinner together tonight. The guy answered her with sadness in his voice. The girl was a little saddened by this answer, but still told him to hurry up to the dinner with the director. At the entrance to the restaurant, the waiter informed the guest that the director was in the VIP room waiting for Mr. Ethan. Ethan was the best leading actor who came to meet with the director of the movie. Moreover, the meeting was at the same restaurant where Julia was now. Ethan's manager told the waiter to clear the room and not to let anyone in. Julia was shocked to see who was calling her name. Ethan asked Julia for permission to talk, to which she sarcastically quipped, "What do you think, Mr. Better Lead Actor? The moment I saw you, you were so beautiful, I forgot you were the president," Ethan replied, not hiding his slight smile. Not wanting to continue the conversation, Julia said, "I finished eating, and now I'm going to go," to which Ethan immediately reacted by asking, "Julia, do you hate me?" As Julia left the room, she said that there was no such thing as hate or sympathy between them anymore. Ethan vehemently contradicted her. "Then why do you keep turning down all my job and activity offers? I don't even know why we broke up." Those who break up in the entertainment industry have only one end. They become like water and fire. Julia had already answered him a little irritated and left the room. Arriving at the room, Julia sat in a chair drinking a glass of wine. "I met my ex in the hotel where my new love and I live together. Such a bad luck." Finishing the red drink, thought the girl. At that moment, Jacob came into the room, turning on the light and waking Julia up. He couldn't understand why she drank so much, but she replied, "Because she was unhappy." She added in her sleep, "I saw someone I didn't want to see today." When she woke up, she found herself lying there with no clothes on, but when she saw Jacob's face and what might have happened that night, she smiled. Sophie came into the room at that moment, asking why she was holding the blanket with a smile on her face. Julia was surprised to see Sophie here, to which her friend replied, "Your boyfriend called me last night and said you were drunk and told me to take care of you." With these words, her friend handed the blanket to Julia. Sophie wondered why Julia was drunk. She rarely does that. And she said that she had met Ethan last night. But the strangest thing was that someone published a post with a picture of Julia and Ethan. There are 2 possibilities. It could have been someone working there, or someone working for Ethan did it on purpose. Sophie voiced her speculation. "No matter who deletes that picture now, I don't want anything to do with him," Julia nervously replied. "Security deleted it as early as last night. I just hope Jacob hasn't seen it. He seems to really like you," Sophie said worriedly, as she sat down on the bed next to her friend. "I know, but the message was deleted this morning. It said they got back together, but the only time he admitted he had a girlfriend was with President Julia, wasn't it?" Discussed the girls on the set. Jacob was just sitting next to them and looking at Julia's picture with Ethan. "That's why she was so upset yesterday. Because of him," thought the guy. He got a new notification from Julia, an invitation to have dinner after work. Why isn't he answering? He found out about yesterday, worriedly thought Julia, sitting in the room. At that moment, the waiters arrived on the set with a fancy table and announced that all these arrangements had been made for Jacob. Jacob was a little confused, but the waiter said that the customer was rich and had ordered the most expensive food and even paid extra to have it delivered right to the set. Jacob immediately guessed who the rich customer was and invited everyone to the table. While Jacob was writing back to Julia, thanking her for the food, His shooting partner came up to him and asked if she could eat with him. "It's pretty boring alone," Lily said. The girl naively started to complain that she was on a diet, and today's meal had broken it, nicely blaming Jacob for it, to something only confirmed her words. "Yes, your face is a bit fatter," thus embarrassing the girl. At this time, Julia walked into a veterinary clinic to purchase a dog. "This is Pooch. You can take care of him. If you have any questions, you can ask me," the saleswoman told her as she held the dog in her hands. "Jacob loves dogs as much as I do. Yes, I can finally get a dog," thought the girl, looking at the dog fondly. "We are waiting for your master to come. Be a good dog," Julia said as she waited for Jacob. Hiding the puppy behind her back, Julia said, "We didn't celebrate your joining the group yesterday, so I am giving you this gift today." Jacob was immensely happy holding the puppy in his arms. He couldn't believe that it was now his pet. Jacob was really happy. He liked both the gift and the person who gave it to him, but there was only one thought going through his mind. "I'm afraid that I can't be the one to move you. I'm also afraid that you still like this person." Also, Julia shyly decided to ask what happened last night, to which Jacob told her, "Don't worry, I wouldn't take advantage of a drunk person," quoting herself. In fact, Julia threw up right on her clothes, and Jacob didn't know what to do, so closing his eyes, he covered her with a blanket and changed her. Yes, and he had already gotten his reward in the form of a kiss from a girl that he liked. Julia took his hand and led him to a place she'd wanted to visit with him for a long time. But Jacob stopped her and asked, "Shouldn't we change our clothes first?" And it would be worth it to return the puppy to the hotel. After changing their clothes, the couple went to the aquarium. "Shouldn't it be closed at this hour?" Jacob asked, surprised. "There's a place that only opens for you," Julia answered him. Grabbing the boy's hand, she led him inside, and they walked through the tunnels under the water, looking at all the beauties of the aquarium. Jacob decided to ask her what made Julia come here, and she replied, "I like the feeling of being inside the ocean. All my problems disappear and I can relax here. I used to come here every time I was sad, probably. I chose this place instinctively," the girl thought as she looked into her reflection. So she came here whenever that guy bothered her? Those were the thoughts that came to Jacob as Julia's eyes filled with sadness and memories of the past. When he looked up, he was horrified to see a large creature above him. But Julia hastened to reassure him. "It's not scary at all, look," she said, pointing her finger at a huge fish. Walking towards this fish, the girl fell down the stairs. Jacob caught her, but she seemed to have twisted her ankle. Immediately, the guy decided that he would take the girl to the hospital, and he apologized. "I'm sorry. I didn't know you had a surprise for me. I'm afraid that all your feelings are fake, and that you will suddenly leave me. I was so scared today. Can you forgive me?" Looking at the girl worriedly, Jacob asked her. "No need to go to the hospital. Let's find a private doctor at the hotel," Julia said, leaning on his shoulder. Well, here the couple had already arrived at the hotel. Jacob supported Julia as she limped, saying that they were almost there. As the couple approached the elevator, someone called out to Julia. It was Ethan, but Julia didn't react to his words and walked on toward the elevator. As the elevator door was closing, Jacob grabbed Julia's hand and pulled her closer, saying, "If you're here, it's not scary at all." As they walked around the aquarium, Jacob marveled at how smart Julia was. "This creature was just huge. With a shake, it can see things behind it," Julia told the boy. Throughout her narrative, Julia brought up Ethan, which made Jacob jealous. "It's pretty boring in here. Let's go outside," Julia said awkwardly after seeing Jacob's reaction. But Jacob decided to bring it up after all. "Actually, I saw this picture. Did you guys make up?" "No, and you're crossing the line by asking that question," Julia answered him irritably. "Are you saying I can't ask anything about this guy? And am I even allowed to talk about this guy?" Jacob said, grabbing Julia's arms and holding her against the glass. "Jacob, you don't have to ask any questions. Forget about the relationship between me and him," Julia answered him with a shout as well. Julia's mind was racing as she wanted to forget this man as soon as possible. Jacob awkwardly said, "I didn't know you had a surprise for me. to which Julia just pulled her hand out of his grip and said she was leaving. Ethan told his assistant to find out more about the guy who was always hanging out with Julia. The assistant said, "There's still a couple of rumors going around. Should we stop spreading them?" To which Ethan said there was no need. He also asked if the studio had invested money in the new movie. "Yes, this movie has a famous director. He contacted me before, but I didn't respond," the manager answered him without any emotion. At that moment, a doctor was already waiting for Julia in the room. She was happy to see him and asked for help again. Having examined her leg, the doctor said, "It's nothing. You just need to rub some medicine on it and it will go away." The doctor left the medicine and hurried away, telling Julia to get plenty of rest and not to put any strain on her leg. Jacob began to treat Julia's leg with medicine, to which she reluctantly pulled her leg out, saying she could do it herself. Blushing slightly, the thought popped into her head, "My foot has always been so sensitive. Am I making you worry?" Julia asked the boy, touching his head, to which he replied, "I'm just afraid I won't be able to catch up with you. I don't want our relationship to be just a transaction." The girl looked up with puppy dog eyes and asked, "Do you want to ruin the deal?" Moving closer to the guy, the girl said, "Jacob, Julia would never do anything to hurt you. I made this contract because you're worth it." Hearing the right answer from the guy, Julia ordered him to take her to the bathroom as the smell from the ointment was too awful. The girl acted like a little child, getting cranky over every little thing, and the guy just had to silently tolerate it and follow all her orders. "Are you going to leave me alone?" Julia asked. When the guy was already on his way out of the bathroom, he only asked confusedly if the girl needed his help. An awkward silence fell between the couple. Lying in the bathroom, the girl yelled for the guy to bring her shampoo. The closer the guy got to the girl, the more embarrassed he became, his face turning as red as a tomato. "This kid is so naive. How lucky I am," Julia thought with a smile on her face, looking at the guy that was embarrassed in the corner of the room. And then suddenly, drawing a parallel between the boy and the new puppy, Julia remembered that they had forgotten about the dog. Julia finished showering and asked the guy to help her out. Carrying the girl in his arms, all of the guy's clothes were soaking wet. "Don't worry. I'd have to change it anyway," the guy said as he nestled his lips against the girl's. "There's a lime party tonight. The principal asked me to come. Let's go together," Julia said, looking at her friend. Unfortunately, Sophie had to cancel as she had to vote for her boy. Julia was, of course, upset, but not really saying, "Even a manager can be a superstar hunter." "Oh, you came, Miss Julia. Where's Sophie? She didn't come," asked the guy who was standing next to Sophie on the set earlier. "Of course I came. Didn't you invite me?" Julia sarcastically replied, also adding that Sophia had a big day and wouldn't be coming in today. As soon as Julia walked into the hall, all eyes were on her, all admiring how beautiful she was, Lily said with a surprised look on her face. "I've admired her before, but she's even more beautiful in real life." "She's always so beautiful, no matter in pictures or in real life," Jacob said with a satisfied face and a bright smile on it. Suddenly, Julia noticed Jacob standing with a certain girl. She hadn't seen her before and didn't know who she was. It was time to raise the glasses. Julia was preparing to make a toast, and at that moment, Lily tripped and spilled the punch on Jacob. Lily immediately apologized, reaching out to wipe Jacob's jacket, but Jacob rudely told her, "I can do it myself." While Jacob was scrubbing the drink stain on his t-shirt, Lily walked over to him and held out his jacket. At that moment, it was as if she tripped again and fell right on top of the guy. Suddenly, a camera clicked from around the corner, and Lily fell straight face down as Jacob managed to step back. The guy couldn't understand what the girl was doing. "I lost my balance, and what are you doing? Why did you step back?" Annoyed by such an act, Lily said. Just at this point, Julia came over and worriedly ran up to the girl asking how she was and if she was hurt. Confused, Lily could only hesitantly thank Julia for her concern. The girl began to innocently excuse herself, as if she had accidentally lost her balance, to which Julia said with a cold stare, "But I saw you throw yourself at someone else." Jacob's popularity has been on the rise lately. With the new Lime show, he has a new fan base. Sophie emphasized, sitting in Julia's office. "But all those fans are only interested in his looks. If we want to keep them, we need to find his strength. Julia also highlighted an important fact. These are our new investments for the company. One is a feature film, one is a fuchsia, and the last one is a comedy, Julia said, holding out 3 scripts to her friend. Just being a face is not enough. He needs a movie to be popular. I'll let him pick one tonight, Julia said confidently as she looked at the 3 scripts in front of her. But at this point, her friend was more interested in something else. How's life together? The dog you bought for Jacob just exploded on the internet. He's posting it on social media. This was not news to Julia. Not telling. Plus, it's not surprising that Jacob is getting popular considering how cute he is. As Julia invited the photographer to step out from around the corner, Lily was visibly nervous with a cold sweat breaking out on her face. I'm in a good mood today. I'll give this to you, Julia said as she picked up the camera that the picture had been taken with. Lily was filled with a kind of anger. She realized that this dog already had its owner, but Julie interrupted her thoughts by saying, "Just a reminder that you need to keep your mouth shut." She then called Jacob over to her and handed him the camera. There are too many people in this place with ulterior motives and those who use others to get ahead, she said with anger and equanimity. But also Julia was amazed at how brave this girl was for daring to lay eyes even on her man. After these words, Lily started to shake clearly. "Miss Julia, can I handle this?" Jacob said emotionlessly, standing behind her back, watching everything that was happening. Julia was worried he'd be too soft on her, but she handed him the flashcard with a smile on her face. Lily was struck by lightning. "I can see why Jacob's been so popular lately. He's sleeping with our boss." That was the conclusion she drew for herself at that moment. "Miss Lily, I can turn a blind eye today, but make sure that what happened today stays between us," Jacob said, handing the camera with the broken memory card back to the girl. The girl's face was horrified. She was shaking, and she promised not to say anything to anyone. With those words, they left. Jacob came out of the restroom and bumped into Julia. "You're too soft if I didn't follow you. Tomorrow all the headlines would be talking about you." The girl began to rebuke the guy. "I don't care about the headlines. If other people saw what you did, you'd be in trouble too," said Jacob, reminding Julia that she too was a target for sensationalization in the yellow press. And then the girl's jealousy took over. "You're mine! How can I just stand by and watch some girl throw herself at you?" Julia flared up, not hiding her emotions. Back at the hotel, the couple sat down on the couch, and Julia pulled out the company's 3 newest offers for Jacob. The first one he liked was a feature film called Spring Days. He liked the director, but Jacob lacked the skills for this shoot. The girl in turn recommended another option to him and told him he would keep her as a backup just in case. "Can I try Spring Days? I'll just give it a try," Jacob said excitedly, expecting a positive reaction from the girl. Looking at the cute face of the guy, the girl said with a smile on her face, "I can make you audition, but then you'll have to star in a drama, I'll suggest." There was no limit to the guy's happiness, and for her help, the girl demanded a reward in the form of a kiss. Jacob didn't mind, so he rewarded his boss without hesitation. The next day, when Julia came to the office, she saw her own brother in her office. He decided to surprise his sister with his appearance without giving any advance warning. "I heard that you've become obsessed with a certain small-time actor," the brother said, picking up on the recent news. "What do you mean you've become obsessed with one minor actor? Are you against my relationship?" Julia said with a slight note of contempt. "Are you sure you can call it a relationship? When did my little sister become so addicted?" said the guy, looking straight into the girl's eyes. Julia said with confidence, "Yes, I am comfortable with him, and he is also young and kind. I shall be at an advantage even if I bet everything on him." His brother was happy to hear this from his sister, for as long as she didn't bring up Ethan, he was ready to support her in everything. This sweet conversation between brother and sister was interrupted by Sophie's abrupt entrance into the study. Seeing Julia's brother, Sophie became nervous and abruptly closed the door behind her, making Julia wonder, what's wrong with her this morning? "Sis, I'm going to go now. Remember, your happiness is more important to me than anything else in the world. Love will come one day. I don't want you to get married all of a sudden." Saying this, the guy left his sister's office without slowing down. All this time, Sophie stood under the office, calming her rapid breathing. After leaving the office, the guy scared the girl even more that she ran away with all her might. Christian only smirked at her and said, "Let's see how fast you run now." And now it was evening, and Julia was still sitting in her office cubicle, thinking about her love. It will never become a reality. After all, 7 years ago, I gave up my dream of love. That night in her lap, Ethan sobbed like a little baby. What did I do wrong? Why am I the spare? I'm so sad. Julia then did everything possible to lift Ethan from his knees, and in return received only betrayal, because according to the guy, there are things more important than love. That's why relationships that benefit both parties are more natural for adults, was Julia's position at the moment. Just by this time, Jacob was hurrying home from the studio with a single thought in his head. I hope Julia waits for me. Coming home, he found the girl in a half-asleep state. Lying down beside him, he said, "You said you missed me." They both fell asleep with smiles on their faces, as Julia was glad she'd chosen this guy. And Jacob had only one thought in his head. This is the first time you've ever said you missed me. The sun was streaming through the curtains, and Julia was awakened by the voice of the alarm clock, which alerted her to a new voicemail message. The thing startled the girl. "Isn't this the thing Jacob advertised when I had time to buy it?" The girl wondered, shaking the alarm clock, nervously trying to silence it. After fully awakening, the girl picked up her phone and dialed her boyfriend. "Did you make it? And that robot, I don't remember buying it." "Yeah, I advertised him a while back. Isn't he cute?" Jacob replied with a smug smile. Already sitting in the kitchen munching on breakfast, Julia reminded her boyfriend of his behavior last night. "You know you didn't have to come over last night." To which Jacob replied to her with a little blush, "If you say you miss me, I'll come wherever you are." This guy clearly knew how to flirt. As the call ended, Jacob heard a certain girl walk into his locker room. It was the new makeup artist. The girl was very flustered. "Do you have any makeup preferences?" she pronounced, blushing slightly. The guy didn't know much about it, so he trusted the professional completely, telling her to just notify him when she was done, and then relaxed in the chair. The girl was fascinated by the beauty of the guy and could not concentrate on the work, but still gathering all her will began to work. "Let me remove the dark circles under your eyes." As she was finishing her meal and admiring Jacob's talent for cooking, Julia heard a loud and annoying knock at her door. Opening the door, she saw Sophie, who couldn't catch her breath. After drinking a glass of water, Sophie began to tell her friend the news. "Did you know that Jacob's post has gone viral? Fans are trying to figure out whose skirt that is." Looking at the guy's post, Julia read some comments in her voice. "Wow, look at this. Some people say it's his mother's skirt." Sophie was very disturbed by this news, but Julia told her in a calm tone, "Put these things on and take a picture. Then spread the news that Jacob is now in the company. Talk to the publicity department and run it on social media." Julia also snidely asked her friend where she had been all night, since she hadn't shown up at home, to which she blushed and shoved her friend out of the way, saying it was none of her business. Coming out of the dressing room, Sophie noticed that Julia's dress was a little too big for her in the neckline. But the friend was not interested in the size of the dress, but in what was on her neck. She said nervously that insects had bitten her, adding, "Are you going to take a picture or not?" After covering up all the red spots on her neck, Sophie took a photo and posted it on social media. But when she turned her head, she saw Julia's stare that made her embarrassed. Julia kept trying to ask her friend where she was last night. "Leave me alone. Why do you like to pester everyone so much? Where has your coldness gone?" Sophie responded sharply, trying to fight off her friend. Jacob was suddenly accosted by a guy who was congratulating him on becoming a member of the company. "Do you handle everything? Do you have any assistants? I'd like you to introduce them to me," the guy persisted. Jacob was a little confused about the guy's intentions, and he decided to add, "Whoever is behind you, you suddenly start getting involved in 2 big projects and advertisements for big companies. It's impossible to accomplish that on your own." In these words of the guy, you could feel the notes of envy and contempt. A split second, and the guy found himself pinned against a nearby growing tree. "Remember, no matter who's behind me, you have no right to mess with that person." Jacob's voice had a note of jealousy and hatred for the stranger. "If you have time for such nonsense, you'd better get to work." Jacob replied irritably to the guy, letting him go. "It's a hard world. Not everyone is as lucky as you are," Jacob said as he walked away from Jacob. But after a while, a man came running up to Jacob. "Jacob, we need to shoot the Easter scene where you fight Gabriel. Please get ready." The guy decided to clarify if weapons would be used in the scene, adding, "I'm a sword wielder. I think it would look cool." The director was discouraged. "You can use one! Great, that's what we'll do. Get ready!" As it turns out, the guy Jacob will be fighting is the cocky white-haired guy he had earlier pinned against a tree. Having changed into a suit and makeup, Jacob could not pass by any female character on the set. Everyone admired his beauty and ball skills, but his shooting partner was clearly uncomfortable. He stood and thought why he has a sword, and he should hold a fan. These thoughts made his partner shiver. So the first take, the sharp clang of the sword and his partner's fear grows. "It's just a show. No need to be so serious," he said in a trembling voice. The guy was even more horrified when his fan broke under the pressure of the ball. A split second, and the sword was already around Gabriel's neck. "Taking every job seriously is my motto," Jacob said, holding his sword at his opponent's neck. General applause erupted throughout the set. "Jacob, I can't believe you're so good. You look really cool," praised the director to the young actor. To such praise, Jacob only said with a smile on his face, "At school, I was in the theater club. The teacher taught me that. One show needs a man who can communicate with a sword. Do you want to come?" The director said smugly, as if he'd taught the boy such a skill himself. Jacob gladly accepted the invitation, saying to notify his manager of the time and date of the event, and turning toward Gabriel said, "I think I'm working well with Gabriel. Can he come with me?" It was already nighttime, and Jacob and Julia were out for their evening walk with the puppy. Julia noticed that something strange was going on with Jacob lately. "You seem depressed since you've been here," she said, as soon as they sat down on a bench to rest. "I really like to create colorful characters in front of the camera." The boy began his story. Jacob started to broadcast his story about how he fell in love with acting because of one person, how he first fell in love with her, came to her school, her company. All the time he wanted to be with her. "This person, me?" Julia looked at him questioningly. Looking at her with an amorous gaze, he uttered, "Don't want us to be together just because of a contract. I always wanted to be with you. Can I take your words to mean that you want to stay with me forever?" Julia inquired after the guy's confession. The guy even blushed from such intentions of the girl, to which she, in turn, lifted the puppy in her arms and with a satisfied grin went towards the house, saying with the dog, "Your father wanted me to sign a lifetime contract. Isn't it silly?" It was the Lime Company press conference. The host was just inviting the drama's lead actors, Jacob and Lily, to the stage. The enviable couple went up on stage and started to greet the audience. Coming down from the stage, Jacob noticed a scar on Lily's back, and to avoid unnecessary gossip, he threw his jacket over her. Once on the bus, Jacob prayed he wouldn't have to work with her again. This kind of request shocked the manager a little. "There's no agreement that you two need to be together, but for some reason you suddenly hate her. I heard she hooked up with some guy to be the heroine of the show. I guess she knows the rules of the game, so why doesn't she belong here?" said the manager. The girl's love of gossip irritated Jacob a little. "The company is just using her, and she's still threatening to become popular," was Jacob's opinion of her, to which the manager replied, "That's why it's better to be in a big company. We don't have unspoken rules like that." Jacob only smirked awkwardly, and a thought popped into his head. "You don't realize that the person in front of you is just following the unspoken rules of the president of the company, Miss Julia." By the way, the manager also remembered that the guy's luggage had already been moved to his new home, and now they have to return to the company since the boss said there would be an important meeting in the evening. Sophie and Julia were already sitting in the meeting room. Her friend was very interested in what it was during the press conference. Julia calmly replied, "Nothing. That girl tried to spread rumors, but I caught her. Why are all these tags so funny? They must have been written by a genius." Just then, Jacob walked in. He was very happy to see Sophie and Julia. Sophie decided to abruptly interrupt the couple's flirting to announce the big news. "I wanted to let you know that the audition date for Spring Days has been set. It will be held on Sunday, and Ethan will be there too." Jacob was a little surprised that he wanted the same part, but Sophie reassured him. "No, he wants to be the brother of the main character, and you will be auditioning for the lead role." Julia was quite decisive in her choice, as Jacob wanted to audition as he liked the storyline. Why miss out on an opportunity like this because of some guy? The next day, while sitting in a coffee shop, Sophie received a notification from Christian, Julia's brother, whom she was clearly avoiding. The one, sitting in the car, noticed the girl trying to run away right after his message. So he told the driver to make sure that the girl came to the meeting. And so it's evening. The couple is sitting in a restaurant. In Sophie's head, the thought flashed through her mind. I've been here many times, but I've never seen any other visitors. When asked by the girl why the guy came back so suddenly, Christian answered laconically, "I want revenge. Someone ate me and ran away." Such directness made Sophie uncomfortable. She didn't understand the guy's intentions. "What do you want? Do not sleep with me?" With a kind of horror escaped from the lips of the girl. Night. A girl lies under a guy in a hotel. Why do I feel like I'm being played? These were the thoughts running through Sophie's head as the guy kissed her neck. Passion filled the room, filling every inch of it. Christian only cared about one question. "That night I asked if you would marry me. Why did you say no?" And Sophie was just confused about what was happening. She didn't understand if those words of the guy were serious. She couldn't believe what she heard. The guy with loving eyes said, "I'm always serious when it comes to you, Sophie," and gently kissed the fragile girl that was beneath him. Again, Sophie, like a mom mentoring her child, gave Jacob some advice before the audition. "He's so weird. It's even a little scary. He once asked an actor to completely undress to take a picture." Julia recalled an interesting fact about the director. The day came. Jacob was too tense, so Sophie did her best to cheer him up. He was too enthusiastic, not afraid of any of the director's oddities, but ready for all his demands. Distracted from editing the camera, which needed to be lowered 5 degrees, the director noticed Sophie, who was waiting. After telling Jacob about his role, the director turned to Ethan. "Let's see if he's worthy of taking the part. A rookie with no meaningful accomplishments gets your chance. You should take it for granted." Ethan replied coldly and a little dismissively. Camera, action. Jacob began to play out his role very naturally, a sullen and a little even mad teenager. "Mom, Dad, don't become human in the next life, because you have no right to be human," was his final line, which brought out a new range of emotions on his face. The entire set stood motionless. Everyone was shocked to see such a performance from the young actor. "I can't believe Juliana gave me such a treasure." The director ran up to the kid with admiration. Sophie helped Jacob up and also expressed her admiration for the kid's acting. "Sophie, I want to be alone for a while." There was only sadness and apathy in the guy's voice, so much so that the guy was getting into the role of the main character. At that moment, Juliana and Christian complained to the set. "You should choose carefully. I've invested a lot in you," Christian reminded the director. But with such talent, he clearly wouldn't have a problem. "Julia, if you knew about such talent in our company, why didn't you tell me?" the director excitedly inquired. Concerned, looking around the set for the guy, Julia replied, "Because talent needs time to unfold. Go check on your actor. He doesn't seem to be feeling well right now," Christian said, looking worriedly toward Jacob. "I can't believe that you can have such a look on your face," said Ethan, looking at Julia with surprise. Julia approached Jacob, who was sitting alone and away from people. "You did well. Even the director was surprised," the girl said, trying to calm the guy down. In fact, the guy was very worried that he wouldn't be able to get into the role. "But when I saw the cameras, I felt that the hero should behave like that." enthusiastically told the guy about his feelings. Their silence was interrupted by the voice of Ethan, who suddenly approached. "Julia, answer me. Are you dating this guy?" he asked aggressively. The emotions of the troubled teenager that Jacob had just experienced playing the role were abruptly replaced by the jealousy of the young man who began to defend his girlfriend. "It's none of your business, Ethan," Jacob replied rudely. "You think you have the right to talk to me like that? Now tell me, who are you to Julia?" Ethan said, coming closer and closer to the boy, showing his superiority. "I don't have the right to answer like that, but you can't ask our president questions like that either," Jacob said, keeping the chain of command and trying not to be rude. "If I were her old lover, could I ask that then?" Ethan replied with a smirk on his face. Julia was about to contradict him when suddenly Jacob grabbed her arm and left her standing behind him. "What's so special about you being her ex-boyfriend? It's in the past," Jacob said without letting go of her. Julia was touched by the boy's words, and taking his hand firmly in hers, she said with more confidence, "As far as I know, you own most of the stock in our company. Ethan, I know you too well." Leaning closer to her ex-boyfriend, or as he called himself, old lover, she said, "You just used our relationship to get your way." Such insolence of the girl completely shattered Ethan's confidence. As a result, the dialogue was over, and the couple walked smugly away. Standing in the restroom and washing his face, Jacob thought more and more that he should start developing faster, so he picked up the phone and dialed the manager and said, "Send me all the latest news on our company's stock rights." And then suddenly, Christian appears from behind him. "I heard by chance that you are interested in our company's shares. Why do you need this information?" Christian asked, a little in disbelief. "It's a secret, but I won't let anyone challenge my right to be near it," was Jacob's firm decision. Christian wasn't really interested in any of this, so he just patted the guy on the shoulder and mentioned one detail. "But your hair looks dumb." When they came out of the restroom, Sophie and Julia came up to him. The guy's hair did look stupid, so much so that Sophie and Christian were laughing, and Julia had to keep her emotions in check so as not to upset the guy even more. Julia walked over to Jacob and ruffled his hair, telling him not to listen to her brother, because if this hairstyle was so good, why didn't he wear it himself? "Sophie, the director asked me to do a martial arts show." Jacob suddenly remembered the recent news. "Send me your schedule and I'll take care of everything. The director is from another company, so we can also strengthen our relationship with her," Sophie said enthusiastically, supporting the guy's idea. At that moment, Christian interrupted the conversation by hugging the girls from behind and said, "Let's not talk about work. I owe you lunch." The set of the show, Limitless. Jacob looked just gorgeous in his suit. After a successful take, the manager walked up to the guy and said, "The fans are here to support you. They've got a car ready for you." When he left the building, the guy noticed a black bead with his picture on it, and crowds of female fans running towards him, each one demanding attention from him, each one wanting to be photographed with him. Just at that moment, a beautiful, long-haired girl was approaching the building. It was Gloria, one of the actresses of the new generation, as well as the heroine of the movie Limitless. Gloria was surprised by the crowd of ardent fans that crowded around the guy, so she ordered her manager to prepare for her an even bigger show, with even more fans. On the set, Gloria was too arrogant and picky. "Am I not an all-powerful princess or something? Why are the clothes of such poor quality?" objected the girl as she tried on her costume. It was Jacob's first time seeing the girl on set, even though they had been filming for days, so to avoid an awkward situation, the manager whispered to the guy to explain, "She's the heroine of the show. Last time she was on the set of some brand. So she didn't come." "That's it. In the next scene, I'm going to fight her, right?" Jacob asked his manager, to which she silently nodded in agreement, and added that after this shoot, he would be able to rest for 2 days. Gloria turned around and spotted Jacob and ran over to him without wasting a moment. "You look better than that sissy." But no sooner had she finished than her manager gagged her, rushing to apologize for his actress's rudeness. Looks like you two have already met. Gloria, did you learn the lyrics? The director asked, walking over to the lead couple. Taking the manager's hand away from her mouth, the girl replied, "Yeah, there's only a few lines. You underestimate me too much." And so the filming began. But it didn't go as smoothly as I'd hoped. The first take was a bust, as they say. The second take was also bad. Today, the crew was haunted by another setback. In such a long time, not a single successful take. Maybe let it do it understudy. We'll only need to remove your face. Irritated voice, being already at the peak of his emotions, said the director. But the actress, as if ignoring the words of others, calling herself a purposeful person. And then she began to shift all the blame for the failures on Jacob. And then the director's patience just couldn't take it, and he sharply burst out at the girl. "Do you know how much time we spent on this? We all saw you fall, and you're trying to blame it on Jacob now? I just wanted to do it myself. Director, you are so cruel." The girl's eyes were filling with tears, and her face was starting to turn red. So to calm the girl down, and to somehow fix the atmosphere on the set, Jacob asked the director to give her another chance, saying that this time he would try to catch her. "This is the last time. If she fails, the understudy will do it," the director replied, as if resigned to this failure. And then a split second, the girl steps down the cliff, and Jacob catches her, if it was a lucky take. "I did it! If you had caught me earlier, there wouldn't have been all this fuss," the girl said happily and a little self-centeredly to the entire set. Once the shoot was over, Jacob took his bike and drove up to the office at Julia's place, thus surprising her with his presence. "Aren't you at work? How did you know I was here?" the girl asked over the phone. The girl was completely charmed by the guy, especially after saying that he missed her, so without wasting a minute, grabbed her things and hurried over to him. Putting the helmet on Julia's head, the guy decided to ask her, "Then can Miss President go somewhere with me?" The girl didn't know where her boyfriend was taking her. It was his surprise for her. Covering her eyes with his hands, he led her in front of him. The guy invited the girl to the observation deck. "I always used to get out of the house to come here when I was younger." Jacob told her a little about the place. "I wanted to be a director, but my parents were against it. But that's in the past," the boy continued his story. It was interesting to hear, but the girl also wondered if it was all a surprise, or if the guy had prepared something more grandiose. And indeed, it was not the main surprise. Looking at the time on his phone, Guy came closer to the girl and said happy birthday at that moment behind his back, flashed a huge number of fireworks. Such a gesture deeply touched the girl, so she went to the guy and hugged him and gave him a kiss. And now the couple was already in the room. Julia pushed the guy on the bed. He was actually a little discouraged by this pressure of the girl, but could not resist. But Jacob decided to ask, "Are you sure you want to go on?" Because the guy wouldn't be able to restrain himself any longer, the girl said with a more than confident face and tone. "Of course. Do you think a hug and a kiss will be enough?" As the girl said it was time for adult games, this became the green light for the guy's actions. Morning came. The girl started on the guy as suddenly the buzz of a phone call rang out across the room. "Happy birthday, Julia. There's going to be your birthday party today. Don't forget to bring your boyfriend." The girl's mom spoke cheerfully on the other end of the wire. Putting the phone away at the end of the call, the girl once again returned to the coveted embrace of her favorite person. Kissing Julia on the top of her head, the guy again congratulated her on her birthday and wished her a good morning. A little awake, the girl noticed a large number of marks on her body. In her head ran the thought, "This boy, he did not hold back at all." After settling down a bit and thinking, the girl abruptly turned around to the boy and awkwardly asked, "Hey, was that your first time?" The guy, blushing, abruptly began to deny everything Mall it wasn't, though in truth, it was all his first time. But in any case, the operation to seduce Julia was a success. Proud of himself, thought the guy. While the guy was taking a shower, the girl decided to tell him about the plans for the evening, namely the party that her mother was throwing. Awkwardly peeking out from behind the door, the guy asked, "A party? Is it okay if I go there?" Julia was a little surprised by such a question, but still explained to the guy that every year her mom threw themed parties, and the woman herself had told her daughter to bring the guy along. Already standing in front of his mother's mansion, Jacob started to get creepily anxious and went over everything he was wearing. Surely your mom will like the way I'm dressed. I don't think I look good today. Of course, the girl was telling the guy how gorgeous his suit was and how perfect he himself was, but she also decided to threaten him, saying, "If you don't stop nagging, I'm going without you." As they got closer and closer to the mansion, the girl began to realize that this was a masquerade ball. For at the entrance, they were greeted by Christian, wearing a golden mask and a fancy suit. Her brother explained to Julia that it was all because of her new boyfriend. Mom said he's pretty popular, and a lot of our relatives will be there. Christian then handed the couple 2 masks, a gold one for Julia and a purple one for Jacob. Jacob took the mask and suddenly thanked Christian, calling him Big Brother. This was something Christian had never expected to hear from a guy he didn't know, even though he was his sister's companion. Jacob was embarrassed by his words and Christian's reaction, so he apologized immediately. Julia tugged on Christian's sleeve and told him not to make fun of the young man. The boy put his arm around his sister and said, "Mom hired special stylists for you because you're the star of the party tonight." Somehow that phrase made Jacob nervous. I don't think tonight's party is what it seems. The ball was in full swing. Jacob stood at the window away from the crowd, thinking to himself, Ethan has actually become Julia's largest shareholder. Suddenly his thoughts were interrupted by a voice. Christian came closer to him, looking intently into his eyes. "Young master, what is your purpose in dating my sister?" the man asked. "I knew you would pry into my past, but I didn't know you were digging this deep." The boy sighed heavily, trying to think of an answer. "Hey, you don't have to say that. I don't have the slightest interest in your family's past," Christian replied, tapping the guy on the shoulder. "But it seems that my sister likes you a lot, and whatever she says, you have no right to end this relationship unless she wants you to. But if you dare, I will make sure that you pay for it." Christian squeezed the guy's shoulder even harder and then left him. At that moment, the music played loudly throughout the room, and Julia and her mother came down the stairs, all eyes on them. Standing next to Jacob, Christian noticed the look in his eyes. "Looks like I was worried for nothing. This guy is hopelessly in love with my sister." After all, at that moment, Jacob was standing next to his favorite girl without taking his eyes off of her. Afterward, Christian headed towards the women and decided to ask his mother for a dance. "Little rascal, my first dance belongs to your father." His mother snatched her hand away, bestowing her son with a gentle smile. "What a shame. Looks like I'll be the only one without a date this time." He exhaled a little playfully, but with a hint of relief. Jacob, too, decided not to stand around and act. "May I have the honor of dancing with the main star of tonight's event?" he said as he looked up at Jacob. Jacob said, looking at the girl in front of him. The couple, gazing lovingly at each other, danced in the center of the room. After her first dance with her husband, Julia's mom approached her son and asked him how the conversation with her daughter's new boyfriend had gone. "Not bad. He really is quite interesting. As long as my sister is happy, the rest doesn't matter," Christian replied with a calmness in his heart and a smile on his face. It was as if Julia sensed that Jacob had just had a conversation with her brother and decided to ask him about it, to which the boy said worriedly, "Christian said that if I leave you, I'll never get into show business again," to which the girl told him to forget it, and giving him her bright smile said, "Jacob, this is my happiest birthday ever." A little later, Jacob spotted Gloria in the crowd, but because of the mask, she couldn't recognize him, even though he looked familiar to her. So without an ounce of embarrassment, she approached him. "Hey, you look familiar. Have you done a movie somewhere?" the girl sweetly asked Jacob. The question discouraged Jacob a little. After all, he was the main male character in the movie she was currently starring in. How could she not recognize him? Their sweet conversation caught Julia's attention, so she decided to approach them. "Do you guys know each other?" the girl asked, since she had never seen Gloria before. Jacob immediately denied any connection to Gloria, and Julia silently took his hand and led him away. It had been 2 days since the party, and filming had resumed. "How is this possible? I definitely remember putting a change of clothes and accessories here, said the manager anxiously, looking for clothes in the dressing room. It's not a big deal anyway. Maybe you lost them while cleaning? Jacob tried to reassure the manager. Impossible! You just recently joined the team, but 3 t-shirts, 2 mugs, and a lot of other things just went missing. Some asshole must have taken them on purpose. The manager was getting even more worked up and trying to remember what she had put where. After applying makeup and changing into their shooting costume, Jacob and his manager hurried to the movie set. When the actor and his manager left the room, the makeup artist didn't hold back and grabbed the guy's t-shirt and started inhaling his scent. What a wonderful smell, she said as she inhaled another batch of his scent again. Gotta hold back. The manager has already noticed the missing stuff. They all can't find out, the makeup artist said, typing something into her phone. After saying that, she put the actor's shirt back in place and pulled out a small camera from her purse. When I'm not around, you can help me keep an eye on him, the young stalker said as she clipped the camera onto a vase in the room. On the set, the first take with the kissing scene between the main characters was just being filmed. The director asked the makeup artist to fix Jacob's makeup. She immediately went to work, with only one thought in her head. That place that girl touched should be thoroughly washed. Retreating into her thoughts that were full of jealousy, the girl didn't notice how much pressure she was putting on the guy's face. Hey, look, this coffee given by my suitors is much tastier than your previous one. Gloria approached the guy a little enviously, holding out a mug of coffee to him. Jacob had to put up with all the arrogance and envy of the girl just to keep things friendly on the set, so that their personal relationships would not interfere with the filming process. Suddenly, Gloria remembered about the guy she saw at Julia's party and decided to ask him about it. Jacob, did we meet somewhere at the party? No, I don't think so. We haven't attended any events together lately. The guy denied everything the girl had said and silently sipped his coffee. At the moment when the guy turned his back to her, she abruptly remembered the silhouette of the young man from the party. It was so familiar to her, but she quickly pushed those thoughts away. Forget it. My brain can't remember anything. Because it all seemed like something meaningless to her at that moment. I had a feeling that call was from you, Jacob said, sitting in the living room and smiling into the void, holding the phone near his ear. Of course it's more convenient to use her phone. Oh, I heard you're filming the kissing scene tonight, Julia answered him, holding Sophie's phone in her hands. Her friend, on the other hand, was burning Julia with her gaze. Of course, the guy couldn't deny the kissing scene that was in his drama, but he also highlighted, "You're the only one I want to kiss." Then I'll come to you tonight, Julia answered him without hiding her joy on her face. I'll be waiting for you to take that stigma off of me. After saying that, Jacob kissed the phone and ended the call. At this moment, the set was already shooting a take with Gloria. The girl was too focused on her role, and not noticing a small obstacle between her legs, she stumbles and falls forward right onto the guy with the camera. Luckily, Jacob came out of the dressing room in time to catch Gloria. Thanks to him, the camera is intact and the girl is unharmed. The young makeup artist was watching, and she was filled with jealousy, so she dropped a vase right on top of the actress. Jacob grabbed the actress to cover her with his body, taking the brunt of the shards. One of the shards hit Jacob right on the cheek, and just a split second later, drops of scarlet blood began to drip from his face. The whole set was in an uproar. Everyone was scrambling to find a doctor, and the makeup artist was trembling. That's not how it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to hurt. From now on, she felt guilty for what was happening. Luckily, the injuries were only to the area around your eyes. If the shards had been a little closer, you could have damaged your eyeball, the doctor said while treating the wound. Although the wounds were not serious, but still the manager decided to clarify whether it will affect the shooting, to which the doctor dryly replied, "Will not affect, but it is better if he takes a rest for 2 days because of the fact that the injury is on the face is desirable not to apply makeup until the crust formation." The manager immediately picked up the phone to notify Sophie and also threatened the guy not to take it too lightly as he could get scarred. It was Julia, and he picked up the phone with a slight smile on his face as if nothing had happened. The girl was very concerned about the guy's condition, so she told him to go back to the hotel immediately, saying that she was going to go to him right away. It's not pleasant, but the thought of seeing you erases all my pain. Even in such a situation, the guy couldn't do without a drop of flirtation.